Hi, everyone. So excited to be here, especially with my good friends Kelly and Jason. Chat's wide open. We depend on chat. Our word of the day is perseverance. So always love to hear what anybody has to say relative to that. Always open to questions. With that said, I'll swing it right over to Kelly and get her first read.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. And for everyone in the United States, happy Halloween. Um, and to tie in perseverance to Halloween, man, as a kid, I persevered to get to every single house in the neighborhood so I could fill my my pillowcase up with candy, which is a shame kids can't do that nowadays. Because man, we ran literally wild. I mean, in the sense of we went everywhere that we could. We wanted to get as many houses in this short period of time as we were allowed to be out, which is just kind of, and great. And then compare when you got home, like who got the most treasures and the best candy, and just fun, good memories too, good nostalgia. Um, but perseverance in the real world, I mean, we talk about this in so many things. And I think it's that matter of finding when we hear the word failure for so many people, it's like it's a stop. It's like it's not a stop. It's a time to take a minute and breathe and figure out a new direction and innovation. Like accept it exists something exciting. And I think when we change that mindset and persevere forward, don't stop. It's not going to, you're still going to get there. And I say this a lot, and I tell myself this a lot too, y'all, is we've survived 100% of our bad days. And that's a pretty darn good track record. And perseverance is just having the ability to continue to move forward. And I know the three of us in life, and I can certainly speak for myself, there have been times I didn't want to move forward because I was like, this sucks. And I don't want to feel these things. I don't want to do these things. But I'll be interested to see where we go today because I always love our conversations because Jason and I do have a little thing, I think, together too. And I love where his mind goes and where it takes me and how we can go deep into things. So I think to start with, I'll leave it there.
Great start. And, today being Halloween, tomorrow seems like it's dentist day for a lot of people. So I think maybe dentists were behind this whole holiday. So, Jason, love to hear your first thoughts.
Well, hello, everyone. Great to be together with you two again. As I said, so interesting enough, I have a client in Ireland, and that's why I haven't been able to join you on some Thursdays because we see each other every other week. And she made sure to tell me about Samhain and how that's where Halloween started. I think a lot of people will share that with you from Ireland, but they go to daylight saving times before us. So we shifted our time today. So that's how I was able to meet with you. And just real quick before we get into the fun stuff, Halloween. My favorite Halloween little story is about my grandfather. My grandfather, Castro, on my mom's side, rest in peace, been gone a long time, but he, born in 1915, saw some rough times, grew up on a dairy. He's first generation, Portuguese first generation. His parents came over from the Azores, but made his money, had his business, made a ton of money, had planes, had stuff, lived a great life. But he told his kids, he said, don't go to the houses with the big pumpkins. They spent all the money on pumpkins. They have no money for candy. So I think there's a little metaphor there for life and marketing and looking at people. And
Amen.
that pumpkin's too big. Maybe they didn't spend enough on the stuff that really mattered to us.
Oh, I like that.
But anyway, I like to share that story. Halloween. It's always comes up. Perseverance. Yes, definition I found, doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. So yes, that's something that we can do. But the point I'll make to start off is don't continue to do something that's not working. So often we value, perseverance, they stuck to it, but they stuck to what wasn't working for them. They stuck to wasn't going to get them to where they wanted to go. So you have to be honest with yourself, open to different avenues of it appearing before you just keep grinding it out. Sometimes that's what we're taught. I think the generation that we're all around is, you stick it out, you tough it out, and you just do what you got to do and you make it happen. And it's like, well, there's a time when you got to stop. There's a time when you have to
Mhm.
reevaluate and say, you know what? Yeah, I am tough. Yeah, I can stick this out. I can do it. But am I getting the results that I want? And so I think that's this what I want to start with is that, you know, be open and honest with yourself about, are you getting the results that you want? Don't just keep pushing against a wall. It's not going to move.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, I think these are great ways to start the conversation. You know, a lot of perseverance has to do with expectation. You know, so if you're expecting something to happen sooner than later,
Mm.
you're challenged in your ability to continue. When you continue to do something beyond the need to do something, you're actually forcing something or going beyond something. It's like if you had went to a pop dispenser, right? There's a certain point where it starts overflowing your cup if you keep pushing that button for more soda. So, you know, at a certain point, you might have already accomplished what you wanted to, and now it's moving on to the next element or building on it instead of staying in it and forcing more and more because you've already gotten there. And the other thing I always say is, you know, just like cars, we've got a neutral and a reverse gear. There's a time you can pause. You don't have to decide to go forward or leave, but just reflect, review, and decide. And you also have a reverse gear that you can back out of something that isn't doing what you hoped it to do. Because again, starting with expectation, you might have gotten a result that was unintended, but that's the result. And I think that's what being honest with yourself to say enough's enough,
Mm-hmm.
or I need to go. You know, how many times did you have an issue the night before, even with, let's say technology, and the next morning you went to it and you figured it out?
Yeah.
But you could have been there for an hour or two in a more, let's say, ambitious mode. And, you know, one thing about systems and computers and things of that nature, there's one way and that's the only way. So in other words, if you have a password, that's the password. If you just keep changing the password, it won't get in. You know, I was even thinking the other night, which just came to me, is so many people are looking for new keys to the lock, and sometimes they need to find a new lock to the key. You know, so a lot of times they're going into places where it's not going to be effective, even though they want it to be. And easy is always preferable to difficult. And it's only as difficult as you perceive it, because there are people who do just amazing things that you say to yourself, I could never do, but they could never have done that when they started either. So it's like, how far along are you in your journey? And then the other element is having some fun along the way, which makes persevering more fun, right? The journey's tough enough if you've got distractions and noise all around you. It just complicates things. So we've got Carrie here today.
Thank you.
Carrie says, why did the apple pie go to the dentist? It needed a filling. Well, that's a good one. Carrie says he's having an issue with LinkedIn, but I noticed it is working. And to demonstrate that, we've got Dean, who came in on LinkedIn with his
Oh my God.
potato. Haven't seen Dean in so long. I know me and Kelly have gotten to know Dean over the years. And really, Dean has a truly persevering story
Yes.
that everybody can get inspired by. So thank you so much, Dean. Good to see you. Hope everything's working out as well and maybe better than you thought. So, you know, it's so interesting because yesterday on the show, I had a gentleman named Fabian. Can't really pronounce his last name too well, but he's in England. And I looked at our last conversation. It was in 2022. And Fabian came back to the show as in the audience. So it's just interesting how you never really lose people, but some people have different journeys and different routes to their journey, and they always come home. And I think that's so important, is always coming back to where you're most comfortable with the people you're most comfortable, because that's another element of perseverance. Who's on your team? You know, who's backing you up? You know, where can you go to have a warm meal and a friendly smile? And that gets you going and keeps you going, because that's the whole essence of having fans, right? To get you excited. That's why people who play in their home team stadiums always seem to have an advantage, because their fans are with them instead of against them. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and great insights to be achieved through that. So I forgot where I was. I think I'm going back to Kelly. So Kelly.
Yeah. So, wow. Good. Hi, Dean. It's been a minute. And good to see you, Carrie. Today is National Knock Knock Joke Day, and I totally thought of you as soon as I saw it. But you both made so many great points, and to hit, I think, on both of the ones that stood out to me the most is it is that fact of people sometimes are persistent in the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. I've definitely worked with clients that one of those phrases that we tend to say is, man, you're just putting different lipstick on the pig and like expecting it to not be a pig. It's still a pig. So in your strategies, sometimes it can be very difficult working with clients who are too hard into, because when we have a product or service that we have worked on and birthed, our blood, sweat, and tears are into it, we have a totally different feeling and view of it than what our audience does or what our prospects would, right? So sometimes people have a very difficult time letting that go, because they're like, I know the value of my product or service. I know what it should be. And they honestly fail to make any change. What they change is their outside resource. And I have a specific client in mind, continually was changing marketing teams or a marketing agency and expecting different results. Well, even when I was doing some work with them, I was researching what people had done before. And I was like, well, these are actually like good strategies. I'm shocked that these haven't worked. And as you continue to move forward and see, it was because once the concept was put out or the strategy was put into place, the owners were making massive changes, and they were changing back to their own ways that weren't working. And it was fascinating to me, and I see this in a lot of people actually, is that you don't have the introspection to be, and this is where I'm going to go to Dawn's point of having, a team or a collaboration, family or fans, people, whatever you want to call it around you, to be real with you, is when you blame outside resources continuously for your own failure. This is a childhood thing that will stick with me forever, is I was taught if I'm pointing one finger out at someone to blame, it's Dawn's fault that this product didn't take off right. Remember that you've got 4 fingers pointing back at you. So think before you say that, and be able to have real introspection to say, like, man, I didn't even realize that we were doing the same thing over and over again. That's fascinating. And to be open-minded to take the criticism, because sometimes people are so closed off. But again, it goes to that thing that you were saying, Jason, the perseverance isn't you beating your head against the wall, saying, I'm going to finally break through it, because one of these times the lipstick color is going to be right and it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's not a fashion show, y'all. But then to go to Dawn's point of surrounding yourself with the right people, whether it's a collaboration group, your family, your friends, your tribe, your coach, your counselor, whoever it is, where you can go to have people be real with you and say, like, hey girl, have you taken a look at what you're doing lately? Let's have an honest conversation about your path. You keep doing the same thing. Have you looked at it this way? Let's try to look at things a little bit different. And because it can be scary. I think people get stuck in those things with our comfort zones, right? We fall back into what's comfortable, and comfortable doesn't mean that it's healthy or that it's good. Comfort can truly be a bad place. That's why people a lot of times go back to bad relationships. It's comfortable. I know what to expect. There's no surprises. I don't have to deal with change. I know what my day is going to look like. And that's not, it's uncomfortable to do things that are going to be different. And when you get comfortable being uncomfortable, it does make the journey a little bit different. And I do think, again, it always goes to mindset for me. When we change how we view things, and, people aren't criticizing what you're doing because some people are, for the sake of criticizing. But when people are giving you advice from their, their lane, if you will, just take it in. You don't need to, argue it or say, well, you don't think about it. Marinate on it a minute. Oops, I froze there. But I think this goes back to the point of, Don, what you were saying, and then I'll wrap because I know I've gone on a little bit, is about technology. It's the same thing with a problem. We can be in it in the moment. And I've gotten better at this as I've gotten older, but I still have to sit back sometimes and be like, girl, when I feel overly frustrated or I feel super stuck, we start getting so focused in on what the problem is and we're not seeing it clearly, is to step away from it. That's when I tend to either go for a walk or, like you said, Don, shut it off and come back to it the next morning and view it with a clear mind. Because we can get caught into the noise, and that's when our focus is not the best, because we're focused in then pretty much on the problem instead of being able to see it in a more holistic fashion to be able to find a solution to change, shift, whatever it is, to persevere and move forward. So I'll leave it there. I said a lot. Sorry.
That was great. Very excellent takeaways there. So Jason, your thoughts?
Sort of a quick note there. So to start off with, one of the things that Kelle had said made me think of, I wrote a quote down, and so this is, here we go. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's a book I'm studying right now. It's from like 1932. Just it's 70 pages, but I've been working on it for a couple months now. It's just
What's it called again? I'm sorry.
As a Man Thinketh.
Oh, okay.
By James Allen. And the quote that I wanted to share from I was going to pull a bunch of quotes out because there's a lot of stuff that pertains to perseverance and kind of what we're talking about. But the one that I wrote down was, and obviously there's the male thing, as he thinketh, but we know that's the times. But it says, the quote is, as he thinks, so he is. As he continues to think, so he remains.
Mm.
And that's what we're talking about is, you keep trying to go down that one hole and you keep trying to come from that one place. And you're like, why isn't things change? Why aren't things changing? Why aren't I getting different results? And it's like, because you're doing the same thing. Yeah, but I'm persevering and that's what you're supposed to do. I'm sticking to my guns and no, you missed the whole point of it. It's like going in the right direction and grinding out. If there's something that has to be, there's going to be sacrifice. There's going to be tough times. We know that. We've gone through that, and there might be more and there may not be. But, don't look for those. Don't try to be like, well, I'm grinding it out, so I know I'm doing something right because I was told that it's going to be tough to get my results. So things are tough right now. Boy, I can see that, but it's like, well, I would rather you see getting towards your results instead of seeing that you're grinding things out. Something else you said, Kelle, that made me think about, it's like sometimes you get stuck in the problem. And in NLP, we talk about that at deductive thinking and inductive thinking. Inductive thinking coming from inside and going outside of the problem. We get so stuck like, well, this is my problem. This is my problem. This is my problem. But it's like, well, back out. Like Don was saying, reverse. Mm-hmm. Back out. Take a minute. Oh, it was right here.
Yes.
And this might not be a good example, but it just came to mind. It's like when you can't find your keys and you're like, oh, I know someone took my keys. I know you moved them. If you have kids in the house, I know the kids, what did you do with my keys? You're always playing with them. Where'd they go? And they're like, well, did you check in your jacket pocket? And you're like, oh, when you reach in, you're like, oh, here they are. Oh. You get so stuck in like, well, I know this is it. I know this is it. And it's like, oh, but I missed this one simple thing. Mm-hmm. So persevering in the wrong direction is not a good thing because you'll end up way far from what you're trying to achieve in this life. So I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And you're right. I mean, what comes to mind is how many people say, oh, I can't find my glasses. I'm looking for my glasses and they're wearing
like
yeah. And the same thing with the key situation. After a while, you start looking in places it's not there, right? You look in the silverware drawer and you say, I would never put these in here. Or you look in a room you never even go to because you're continually hoping against hope that will show up. And if you stop doing something, you know it won't show up. So really the sense of time and urgency has an impact on it. I mean, how many times when you're a kid and you're taking a test and it was multiple choice or something, and you're, rolling right along, and the teacher says 3 minutes, the test is over, and you got 50 more questions, right? And pretty soon you're crossing out anything because anything is better than nothing. And that's what typically a lot of people use is, I don't know, but I got to do something, and if you told them to hop on one leg and act like a chicken, they do that too if they thought it would do any good. So, it's really about being balanced, being comfortable, and if it can't, then it shouldn't, and sometimes you just accept, well, I lost it. Maybe I'll never find it. But if that's the case, it'll be all right because in essence, you have to reduce it to reality. How important is this? How valuable is it? How many people major in the minors and are focused so much on little things? And when they don't happen, they get crushed when it's really the bigger things that they need to focus on. And, to Jason's point with that book, what was it? James Allen was his name. And I've read him. And, I love reading personal development, motivational speakers from the 20s and 30s. Individual like Ernest Holmes, Catherine Pounder was another original that came through around the 20s. And actually, that was the golden days of personal development and motivation. And, there was one book which was titled, it wasn't even a book, most of these things were pamphlets at the time. And it was Acres of Diamonds. And it was all about the story of the person who lived, I think, anywhere you want to say, Arkansas. And their whole goal was to go diamond hunting around the world. And they sold their farm and all the land and took all that money for a year, went around the world and came up empty. And the person they sold to, their home and acreage, dug 5 feet deeper and they found the biggest diamond mine in Arkansas, right? And so sometimes where you're at is really where you need to be. And the diamonds are what you do with yourself towards something, how you apply yourself. Most cases, when you look at perseverance, the visualization is somebody walking up a street against a big storm, a big rainstorm or a snowstorm, and they take 2 steps and they get blown back a little and they keep going and they keep going. And I think that's the most important part is keep going. Doesn't mean you keep going in the same direction, but you keep making forward progress. And it comes to mind a saying I heard, which is an old saying, inch by inch, it's a cinch, yard by yard, it's hard. And if you take those little steps, those easier, lowest hanging fruit steps, instead of like trying to eat that elephant in one bite, it's not going to happen. So, carve out what you are comfortable doing. And it applies to weight loss or anything you want to improve in. Just start with cutting down on a dessert, taking something that's easy to do, because what's easy to do is easy not to do. And that's the rub, and I think that's so important. And ask yourself, what do you have to be grateful for? Because gratitude is something that is always so important. Well, I didn't run as fast as that person. Well, you still can run, and that's something, and it's only when you get competitive, when you start comparing yourself, people go into gyms and they're so afraid that people will see them and no one sees you, and people will say, well, he's or she's lifting these little weights. And, what is that? But, the key is who is this that you're listening to? And why wouldn't that person say, well, good to see you. It's nice you were able to make the gym today. It's just, they say 90% of winning is just showing up. Because if you show up enough, you'll learn what not to do. You'll be around people who will teach you what to do. And you got to give yourself that permission to go forward in areas that are strange and are challenging, but it's only because it's in your mind. Some people go to the dentist and say, boy, when I leave here, my teeth are going to feel so good. They're going to be so clean. And others are like, oh my God, it's the dentist. And they go in kind of with that attitude. And what you take in is usually what you come through with. So those are, the game is always between you and yourself.
Right.
You make the rules.
Yep.
You decide if you won. If you lost, you decide on the punishment you're going to provide yourself, which could be how long do you want to feel shame? How long do you want to feel embarrassment? How long do you want to feel disconnected? And I see Carrie made a statement. There's a lot of statements here. Here's one. Here's a joke. And why did apple pie? Okay, we got that. But here's something from Carrie, and I had a conversation on a messaging thing the other day. I've been working on surrounding around great people. I'm still pounding my head against the wall trying to find a better job. But that's again finding any job, finding a job that you're more than qualified for because it's the beginning. What you want to do is have a little success you can build on. And nothing is good or bad unless you determine it to be. And to me, working for nothing is better than not working at all because you're working. It's the people who wait for something that may never come. And the longer they wait, the more pressure they put on themselves.
Yeah.
And then it's the responsibility of someone else to match with them when it should be one's responsibility to earn whatever it is, and that's why going slow, taking it easy, but doing something, because I think the most important thing is to have a goal. That's why you would persevere. The saying, if your why is big enough, you'll always figure out the how to, and I think most people need, why am I doing this? Well, if someone at home is depending on you and their life is at stake, you'll do anything to a certain point, or at least you'll fall down with exhaustion trying, and at least you did it. Where if it's like, hey, who wants that fifth hamburger after you ate four, right? Why would you go out of your way in any way to spend money or take time to do that? So, enough is enough. You're always good enough. There should never be a question as to your value, but it's self-value that determines your happiness. You see so many people who you would think, boy, they're so poor, they're so this, they lack so much. And sometimes they're the happiest people you'll ever see. Why? Because it doesn't take much to make them happy. And they know what it is that's important to them. And usually it's not the bigger house, it's not the bigger car, it's not the bigger paycheck. Why? They say when you leave this world, you can't take anything with you, right? So everything you have is on loan. You never owned it, because it came from somewhere or somebody else before you. And you have to be grateful for that. And, whatever it is, wherever you are, doesn't mean tomorrow has to be the same. And it's you deciding enough's enough. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I think having a inner core belief system that tells you what's right and wrong. How many people walk away from things and you say, I could never have done that. That person was making $1 million a year and having everything else. But at a certain point, it didn't feel right anymore. Or they were working with people in an unethical way. And they said, this is going to turn me the wrong way. And what's the point of having stuff if you're not happy with yourself? And there is some guilt. If you acquire things the wrong way, stole it, tricked somebody, that's always kind of bad money in a sense, because it didn't, it wasn't genuine. So, here's a comment without looking. I didn't see that till you said, I'm working at the church, just getting by with just the amount of money that I get each month. I've been truly grateful for what I have. That's a big step in the right direction. Because everybody needs somebody's help there. And, if you can't work and making money, then volunteer and do something for somebody, or something. And I think that's going to work and having a job. How many people retire and they can't sit home? Why? Because they've been productive all their life. Retirement isn't going to the golf course. With them, it's being around people, doing things productive, continuing to have value. And value does add up, but life has a strange way of coming around to you. And sometimes perseverance will allow you the time and the grace to wait for it. And that's another key element, is sometimes you get way ahead of yourself. Sometimes you got to wait for the world to catch up, or for the people. And that gives you a chance to relax, if that's an important thing. So Kelly.
Yeah, wow. So many things there. One of the things that first started that really stuck out to me is there's such an analogy with the diamond hunters, because it's such a thing as when we're looking externally for something to make us happy, and then yet the diamonds were right there the whole time. That feels very Wizard of Oz. It was within you the whole time. And it is. And I think, with Carrie, and man, because I can feel for you, and I've had so many conversations with so many people, and I've been this myself, is the job market is terrible. Undue to what a lot of external things will say, it's rough, and people haven't been used to being out of work for so long. And I think perseverance, again, one of the other things that both of you were saying, is, we see these motivational posters, and it always has perseverance and someone standing on the top of this grand mountain, posing. And it's like, it shows the end result. Well, they didn't get there by running. They didn't run up and just get there quickly. It's all about small steps. And I know I've used this in the past for my own personal example. There was a time in my life where just getting up was to persevere, to move, was a big deal. And I had a checklist that in the morning, it was like, get up, get dressed, go out and smile at someone. And I noticed it may sound super silly, but when you're in a not great place emotionally and mentally, that's a big accomplishment. Those little things, and there's a psychological thing, and Jason, you can talk about this if you choose. It's checking a box, because it is about having purpose and accomplishment that makes us feel good. So even those 3 little things to start with made me feel good at the end of the day, because I accomplished something. Now, the underlying part of that too was that when you go out and smile at someone is going to smile back at you, and you're getting good energy, and that feels good. So I got a good feeling. And that allowed me for the next time, because then it always progressed. Now do this, add this, go out and smile at 5 people. Whatever it was, those are tiny little things. But those tiny little things led up to big things. Because if I would have stayed stuck in that space and not moving, petrified of how to move forward, then I would still be sitting there. I would be just miserable. And guess what? People would be like, totally understand how she's like that. But I persevered to continue to move forward, no matter how small the steps are. And I think in the job market, and again, I can speak for myself, and I hope resonates with you in some way, Carrie, it can feel very depressing, because it's like, I had a career where I was sought after. If I wanted a job, I got it. Like and I don't mean that in an ego, cocky way at all. If I wanted it, I got it. And after 2020 and being laid off for the first time in my life, and not being able to get the job that I wanted, was a wake-up call in a way that I was not prepared for. Because one, I didn't realize how much of my own personal identity was wrapped into my career. And that's a aha moment for sure, for so many reasons. But when you try and nothing's happening, it makes you kind of go like, well, what's the point? And it's okay to have those feelings for a minute, right? Because we're allowed to feel bad for a period of time. But that's when I reach out to people and be like, man, I am struggling, and because I'm now all of my, those little voices that we have of I'm not good enough, I'm not all the things, they start getting loud. And I feel like when we go into ourselves too much, that we allow those voices to get louder and louder and louder, and the noise starts taking over. And it is about persevering and telling ourselves when we start hearing that, that yes, I am good enough, shut up, whatever it is. And I'm during the time where I had the little checklist of get up, smile at someone, those things, I had little Post-it notes, and I still do this to this day. I have notes in different places in my house, like on my mirror. I've got little vinyl letterings that say, you're beautiful. And and things to remind you of how have positive energy around you in whatever way it is. Read. I spend time, and this is me. I like to spend time, reading scripture or a devotional in the morning, and end my day with gratitude. Those little steps are ways to persevere towards breaking through whatever it is that you're stuck in. Adding in positivity in some way, whatever it looks like, and no matter how little it seems, it will make a difference. And I know it's so hard when you're in it. I've been there, and I know it's so hard to get up and move, but just get up and move, and it will start to go, and celebrate those baby steps. Doesn't matter how small it is, because I'm telling you, I came home after I would come home and I'd be like, yep, I smiled at one person, check that box, check that box. I felt good. And it just seems silly to reward yourself sometimes, but I don't think we do it often enough. And I think right now, and as we come into the holiday season, everything tends to exacerbate for a lot of folks. So persevere, reach out to people, because people are there to help each other. And the hardest thing we can do as humans, and I'm guilty of this big time, we're the first ones to be able to say, oh my gosh, you need help. What can I do to help you? We can't wait to help each other. But we're the worst at saying, hey, I need help. I need help. And even when we don't know what we need, that's a tough thing to ask for. I don't even know what I need. I just know I need help. Well, that's perseverance. And that is bravery beyond to say, I need help. And again, that's about shifting mindset. There is nothing weak about that. There is nothing to be ashamed of about that. Every single human being needs help at some point in their life, and multiple times, not just once. It's not, just that it happens one time and I used my ticket, so now I'm finished. But it is to go back, and I'll wrap this time too, is we want to be able to be sure that when we're persevering to get through something, that we don't make it a habit. Now bringing it back to the business part, the person that keeps doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, obviously is the definition of insanity, is we've got to make changes, and change is not easy. And again, another thing I haven't said a lot lately is, if growth were easy, we'd all be doing it. It's not easy. But there's people that you can lean on, and, give yourself some grace. And I can continue on and on this, so I'll stop right here.
And I'd listen to you on and on. Jason, your thoughts?
So many great points, and so much. I'm writing all these notes down because things keep coming up as we go. So I'll kind of go in order of what I wrote down to touch on points you both said. So talking about giving support and asking for support, I definitely, I can't praise that enough. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I mean, that's what I work on.
Yeah.
So many of my clients, it's like taking the first step to call me is great. I'm like, thank you for showing up. Thank you for reaching out. And, whatever the result is of working with me or not, you took a huge step, and please acknowledge that. Please, celebrate. But when you ask them for support, when your friends want to support you, I'm going to go a little bit to the right before I come back to the center. When people want to give you support, it's like I was thinking of the example of giving a gift. A lot of us are great at giving gifts, but we're not so good at receiving gifts. Oh, you shouldn't have. Oh, no, I couldn't. Oh, please don't. You are taking from that person the joy of giving a gift when you deny that gift. So when someone wants to support you and help you, and you're like, and you have that feeling like, oh, I don't need that. Whatever shows up, just remember that the gift is that they want to support you. And how does that feel when you're of service? I think all three of us in this community is of service. And so we can respect that. But when we don't allow that to happen, when we push people away, we're denying them that gift. So I'm going to put that out there. Something else you said that made me think about, just recently, I was teaching a retreat Sunday this past weekend, and retreats are tough because I don't know the people. This is the one day I'm going to interact with them. Some people come back to different retreats that this person's putting on that I participate in, and I have to teach from an angle of, you might be an absolute beginner and you might be an expert. You might be closed off to change, and you might be ready to make those changes. And so there's a lot of nuance in there. And so I have to talk to everybody. And someone wasn't ready for something that I had to say. I had made a point about kind of what we're talking about, about perseverance and about how it's your outlook and your mindset. And she was not ready for that. And so she pushed back. And so that becomes a challenge because I had to keep the attention of the whole class and honor what she had to say and what she was feeling. So a lot of times that could be a challenge when we talk to people about this kind of stuff. So I usually say when we all meet, I usually say, hey, come from a place of compassion, know that we're all where we're at, we're all starting, we're all where we're at, and it's very important. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little wordy this time. I got a bunch of stuff I want to but you both talked about it. And I love that it came up. And Don, you specifically talked about gratitude. And a quote that I love is that gratitude is wealth. And that's such a truth. I think about Dawn, about this LinkedIn Live. And, I said the definition is persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. But you have to celebrate your small successes. It's a ladder. It's a checkbox, like Kelly was saying. You're checking those. I did this. I did that one thing. I got out of bed today. I smiled at one person. I brushed my teeth today. And it's those small victories. Dawn, if your goal when you started was to have 60 people in the cohort and to have 20,000 people in your community and all that, and if that didn't show up overnight and you were like, oh, I'm done, I'm not reaching that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here. 2 years, 3 years later, now that you guys have been doing this, we wouldn't be here. But you just said, hey, I'm celebrating these successes and I've met these people and I'm having great shows and the community is growing and we're doing it. And it's just that little bit, those steps going, and we're here and it is growing and it is getting bigger. But it's about celebrating those small successes is so important. And the last thing, promise for this time, is you both were talking about the diamond story, and then Kelly, you had talked a little bit about that too, about where he is. I had a friend that I'm into gems and crystals and things of that nature, and I met somebody. I know somebody that he's been around crystals forever, and he's an old timer, and we have a great relationship. And he's like, hey, you want to come check out this really cool thing I got in my truck? So we went outside of the store to his truck and got this fire opal. And it's this opal that's red, and it's just this amazing, it's stuck in wood. And it just was amazing. It was so beautiful. It just was like watching a sunset, live. It's amazing. And he told me the story of how he got it. There's a place in Nevada where you could go and dig for this stuff. And he went out with a friend, and someone was digging in this one area and got a couple things, but they were giving up. They're like, he knew him. He's like, you can have this area. We're leaving. We didn't get anything. He dug literally like 3 feet down and found this amazing opal.
Oh,
of
course.
And he's like, oh, I told him, and he was so upset, So it's that. So, perseverance, we talked about knowing when it's time to quit. But if you're in a fertile area, if you're in the right area, but you just aren't getting the result, keep going. I'm not saying, oh, you're not getting the results you want, so stop. That's not it. But having an awareness of, well, am I going in the right direction? And I just haven't got that result yet. Yes. This person found a couple opals, so guess what? He was in the right spot. He just didn't get the result that he wanted. If he kept going, then he did that. And the same thing within our lives. If you're in an area where no, it's showing up, it's just not showing up how I want it, keep going.
Yes.
Yeah, these are wonderful thoughts and insights, and they're a way to perceive your life, and gratitude again is a main ingredient. But there was a poem, I can't really recite it, but it was by Robert Frost, I believe, and it said, strong fences make good neighbors. And the essence of it is you moved into a house and everybody built a fence around you so you wouldn't come in, and you built a door so they could come into you. Right. So a lot of times you got to go where the action is or where you want to one day be. And when I think about it, I live in a good community in Colorado. there are so many things taking place every day, from the city provides for adult people who can go in and play bingo or watch movies together, for baseball games that are anybody can go to. You don't need a kid in the game to be there. I remember when I was at a very low point, and it's hard. It really is. It's easy to give advice when you're not in that situation, you know.
Mhm.
And when you find yourself in your situation, it's not what you're used to. Sometimes you never knew how low it could go, and then it got lower. And, it's like an elevator that found more floors down there, and you just want to stop the decline. And I just decided this is not acceptable. This is not sustainable. This is not positive. And what I did is I found a Toastmasters organization.
Mm.
It's been around forever. And I never thought about it, but there was a meeting only a block or two away. And it was usually for people with second language issues. So a lot of people were there to learn how to speak. It wasn't just great speakers, but people who, needed to interview. It was about a mixture about everybody. But I found so many people so accepting, and if I wasn't in my situation, I would have never taken that step. And then there was a church in my area that had a great night of music. And I told Ann, let's go there just for the music. It wasn't a matter of belief or anything. It was just being there. And once I saw what it was, is I got hooked on it. And, sometimes a door closes, which allows you to open another door. And sometimes life tells you you have to change because what you've been doing isn't sustainable. When you were 20 years old, what was so important to you would be non-valuable in every way. As you get older, style doesn't mean as much as comfort.
Mm.
You're not trying to impress anymore. You're not trying to show off anymore. And hopefully over years, you've gotten pretty good with that. And the universe and the world around you is so beautiful. Like Jason said, a sunset. Just watching a ladybug walk across the window. There's so much. What are you focused on is the key. And when you focus too much on your troubles, when you focus on what you don't have instead of what you do have, why? Why keep punishing yourself in a way? Why create a jail that didn't have to be there for you? And why not be thankful for everything and everybody you've had? And that's why even pictures are so important. If you have pictures of your family and great events, you can close your eyes and you'll be right there with them again. And those are priceless. But people don't really focus on that. They focus on their bank account. They focus on their home. And, life is not a straight line up. A lot of times until you get knocked down, do you know what it was to be on top? And, failure is feedback. And again, life is precious. Every day is a blessing. Everybody, who really has second thoughts about their value, just go to the obituaries and say, who wouldn't trade my life right now? And they could have been the most famous people in the world and you wouldn't trade with them where they're at. And I think that's important, is if you're happy with less, you can also be happier with more. But if you're happy with more, you may not always be happy with less because you're living in the past, and I think that's so important. I just got finished with Al Pacino's life story, and until you hear that these people weren't overnight successes, these people weren't born movie stars, and they got lucky, they got an opportunity maybe that someone else didn't, but in most cases, it's having a mentor that makes all the difference. It's having someone who invested in you, saw something in you you might not have seen for yourself, and helped you along the way. And I was blessed with a couple of those individuals, and I would pinch myself as, why are they bothering with me? Where do I come into play? But to Jason's point, some people are givers. Some people would rather give than receive. And some people would rather build people up because someone did that to them. Usually, how you come in is how you bring other people in. If you had a crummy boss and that's how your first experiences were, and they were mean and angry, when you become a boss, you're going to be mean and angry too, because that's the model you followed and the circumstances. And probably the last thing you want is too much success too soon. I mean, it's so tragic when you see these 20, 25-year-old influencers who have millions of followers and they give up their life because I don't even know. They weren't prepared. They weren't mature when they got all that money. And you look at sports figures the same way. People making 80, 90 million a year. And in 6 years, they're broke after buying 18 cars and 6 houses. And, nothing lasts forever. And, I think the key is to get somewhere in the middle. You don't want to be on extremes. You don't want to have way too much that you'll never be able to sustain, or be so modest that there's no reason to get more because you don't even appreciate what you have. That's where reflection and review is so important, because people are go, 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 straightforward, go faster. Instead of, sometimes you got to just sit back for a while and add it all up, see what it looks like, and then make small adjustments along the way. Because that saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me, is so important. But it doesn't have to be stressful. I remember when I first went to the gym, I bought all these, I'm talking a long time ago, you bought all these clothes, you got to have the look. And you go there and you think all the people there are looking at you. And if you're not really doing things aggressively, well, I did that for like 3 days, and this is terrible, I said to myself. Just come here, do the treadmill a little bit, walk around the track, lift a few things. That's fine, because that's the best way, is little by little. And even looking back and doing, 600 shows in 600 days, I was listening to some other day, and really what that reflects is discipline, is the ability to continue to do something over and over again and never lose any enthusiasm for it. Get excited every day. But again, if someone says 600 days in a row, I would say it's impossible. Why? Because even if I want to do it, life may not allow it. There might be a dental issue, or there might be a medical issue, or there might be a trip. And it never happened. But you allocate. You say, if I'm going to do this, I can't have any other distractions. I can't do this at the expense of somebody else. And I think that's another key element of perseverance, is knowing you're not alone, knowing it's not about you. And, a lot of times I would have never done anything that I did if I didn't have people depending on me to do it. If it was just me, I could have said, I don't care. But if you got a family at home and you got bills to pay and you got things to do, and you want to be better, the point is how do you invest in yourself? If you were a stock, would you buy it? Would you put your money behind yourself? Would you put your time behind yourself? So what type of investment are you creating for yourself? And what kind of return are you creating? And if you can take a lot of people with you, why not? Because I think that's so important, is to give back what has been given to you. And my ex-partner, who I consider the greatest person ever come into my life in that way, when I finally said, Fred, I think I can take it from here, and I was afraid of what he might say, like, who are you to say goodbye? I'm the person who says goodbye. But he was so thoughtful. And he said, I've been waiting so long for you to tell me that. And how important I was to him, and how proud he was. And, that meant so much more. And he gave me the thing, ever need some, come back to me. I'll be there for you. And I said, how sweet of a guy can you find? And I did say, just out of obligatory desire, what can I do to repay you, Fred? And he says, help somebody the way I helped you, and you'll have more than paid me in full. And I've took that advice seriously. And that's all I've done since then, is find people I can work with. And it proved so well in business. I found people that nobody would have hired. because no one saw what was inside of them. They always saw the outside of them, or they always saw the past and not the future. And I know people who have desire and would, if they given a chance, they won't blow it. They'll be so appreciative as opposed to trying to hire somebody over who's a superstar, somewhere else, and you think they're going to plug in with you. That's not what makes success. It might make money, but again, it's not something that you want to tie your flag to or whatever. So, I've learned, I've experienced, and I've seen the best and I've seen a lot of the worst. And the key is do what's right. And I know that's not a typical thing these days to think about. Instead of being uncivil, be civil, be kinder than you should or people expect, because it is the little things. And if someone, like Kelle says, smiles back, well, you just had a mutual interaction without any cost, without any time. And just like Johnny Appleseed, why not keep planting? Why not keep building things? So Kelle?
Yeah, wow, that was a lot. Johnny Appleseed, that was a random thing to throw in there, but great, I love it. The thing that keeps coming back to me as you were speaking is, for everyone, it truly, it doesn't matter how much or how little you have externally these things, because things don't matter. It is about our own internal and our gratitude of how we feel. I can't help but come back to that in our mindset. Mindset is everything. Because if I'm going out into the world and I'm going to say today's going to suck, I'm going to pull every piece of information out of the world that is going to confirm my belief, and likewise the other way. And if people are struggling to, because they're in a place of negativity, I can't get a job, their media is so negative and nasty. Like, we're being fed all this negative fear and stuff. And how do I adjust that in my own mind? Because now I'm taking it on, because that's the noise that's around me, and I'm wearing it now. And it is about, what can I do for myself to help turn my mindset? And, one is truly getting a coach. I believe 100%. I'm a huge fan of coaches and counselors, depending on what you have going on. I will say one of the things that I started many, many years ago is called a 5-minute journal. And it literally is a 5-minute gratitude in the morning and gratitude in the evening. And as silly as it sounds to some, and I've known people that have said they didn't believe in it. They were like, this is garbage. Like, what's 5 minutes of me filling this out every day going to do? And then later coming back and being like, oh my God, I cannot believe how much this little shift changed my life. Because you think of it holistically. We just turned something a degree. Over time, how big that space is going to get. So those little changes make a huge difference. And something that I've seen of late that has stuck with me, and it came to me too while you were talking, Don, is speak what you seek until you see what you've said. And I was like, man, that's awesome. Because it's so true. Because if we keep telling ourselves over and over, I don't know why I'm still trying to do this because I keep failing. Well, you're going to keep failing then, because your mindset is in this negative space. So speak what you seek until you see what you've said. And the last thing that I'll say, because I know we're coming up and it always goes by so dang fast, is, that smile thing, and looking back at the importance of those exercises just for myself, and knowing how many people, have their lives have been changed by a stranger that smiled at them, literally saved their life, is you don't know what you're doing to that person that you chose to smile at. You have no idea what they've gone through. Maybe they needed that smile that day. And when you look back and think of those things, like I just got chills saying that, you don't know how many people you impacted, because it's a ripple effect, right? When we go out into the world, if I'm nasty to someone, they might have been in a bad way, and now I've just exacerbated what they're going through, and that's rippling in their home, their work, their family. And thinking of that as how we approach the world and what we're going to put out there. You have the choice to do that, because that will also come back at you. And I will leave, because it is, I think, it is our choice, and I think it is something I'm so blessed and grateful to do, is to go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
That's always beautiful, Kelly, and always appreciate it. Jason, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I want to end with a story that was shared by Wayne Dyer, and I can't remember her name, the author. And it's amazing, and I actually just shared it this weekend, and it just pertains. So it's they were asked to write your life in 5 chapters, a short story, and the woman wrote, I walked down the street, and there's a huge hole. Chapter 1, I fell in, I'm stuck, I can't out. Chapter 2, I fall in, I try to get out, I'm still stuck. Chapter 3, I fall in, I asked for help, I got out. Chapter 4, same street, I walk around the hole. Chapter 5, I walk down a different street.
Oh, goosebumps
Yeah.
to my core. Love
Yeah.
that.
That is beautiful. And, there's another saying, I've been broke, but I've never been broken. And I think that's so important. Situations happen either because of you or in spite of you, but you take that and you move forward with what, you got to start with wherever you are with whatever you have. And the starting is the key. That whole Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And we talk about the serenity prayer, and I think that's so important. Things of that nature, which it wakes you up. It gets you out of yourself, and it puts you in a better self. And Dean says, and there's so many comments, it's a start, not the finish line. 5 minutes a day, and then comes back with the fastest hour on LinkedIn. And I know that we do well and we do good for others, and it shows with our intention, even if we don't always state that. And I'm so gratified and proud. I lost track of how many people were here for the first time and have their own shows, and from those shows got more situations. And you like to be the launch pad, not always the rocket. You want to be the person to get behind somebody, because they want it bad enough and they deserve it, but they can't always do it on their own, and they shouldn't have to. And I think that's what a generous spirit and heart can provide, is the acknowledgement, I see something in you, I know you got greatness within you. And when someone hears that, especially a kid, and they say, I didn't know I had greatness within me, I don't know how to get it. It's like, you don't have to know. You just have to believe. And there's a difference between belief and knowledge. Belief is, they say faith is the belief in the invisible, is believing something that you can't see or touch and maybe isn't there yet. But if you keep hoping and keep praying and keep believing, you might even find yourself in a better situation. And all of a sudden you walk down a road, like Jason says, and you pivot to a better road, but you would have never got that better road if you didn't start with the road. So anyway, we're a little bit over, and I want to thank everybody for being here. I especially thank Kelly and Jason, because it's so important to do things for others when in essence you're really learning and growing and being so much for it yourself.
Yeah.
So as you give, don't think of that as a one-way street. Like Kelly said, just thank you so much, I needed that, would be more than payment, and it would be a bigger return than was the gift. And I think that's the key. I think one last thing, what Jason said, when someone gives you something, it's hard for people, oh, you look so attractive today. Well, I don't look that good, or you didn't notice this, versus that was so kind of you. I really appreciate it. And the more you say it, the more your appreciation will be for it. And I think that's where people get the real value, how you can be a millionaire just in the grace you provide. So with that said, thank you so much. I'm now going to be doing Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So I'm cutting out Monday and compressing things so I can take care of a few other things. And that will change with time too. So it's not like I'm shortening to shorten, but just resizing and repositioning. And I think that's important, is to know when it's time to change and not get stuck in a routine. And with that, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Jason. I'm so thankful. I'm going to have to find a stranger and thank them for something they don't even know
There you
they
go.
were responsible to keep the thing going. So with that,